Hi, team. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, got you.
We've got Lou. We've
Yeah.
got Jeff. We've got Rosie. Everybody. Well, I'm really sorry about my. Oh boy.
Hello?
Can you hear me now? I think I just got kicked out by my Wi-Fi.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Perfect.
I can still hear you.
Yep.
Sorry, just having some trouble, but I think we're good now. So, good afternoon, everyone, and my apologies for the late start. Unfortunately, I had some issues with connection, but we're here now. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Startup Talent Q&A. I believe it's our 166th session. We've been doing these for just over 4 years now, where we seek to help startups like yourselves with whatever questions you may have in terms of your talent journey. Whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, or perhaps how to hire them, how to interview them. Maybe you want to know what duties certain people should have and what skills are the right ones for those duties, and maybe how much to pay people, and perhaps how to train and develop and empower them. Any questions to do with your talent journey in terms of the people in your startup, this is the place to ask those questions, and perhaps the best place you can find today. Now, we're going to do this quite simple and straightforward. We'll have some quick introductions. Then we'll ask the panelists. I've got 3 amazing people with us today. We'll ask them for their do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage talent. And then we'll open it for Q&As from the audience. Again, today there are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If, however, you are on the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams, because unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions live there. So if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please be aware that you would need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is either by clicking on the links that you have on those live streams, or if you can't see it, simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down to find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 166. You click join. A quick registration will get you a link to your email, and through that link you can then join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, by the way, which means you can join from anywhere via any platform or device rather. Once you're here, all you have to do is just drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask our team. You see, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. And the top 3 reasons for that are 1, market fit, 2, running out of money, and 3, not having the right people. But I guess when it comes down to it, if you have the right people, you'll find ways to get your products market fit right. You'll find ways to find the money, and you'll find ways to do what you need to do to make it a success. And the 3 people I've got here today, I think they might just be able to give some advice on how you can do that. So get your questions ready and don't leave it for last second, because we've only got 51 minutes to go. Now, my name's Anton Cole. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators, and I help angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment too. And lately, the last 4 years, I'm focused on our Startup to Scale Up Club community. We'll start with Rosie, then we'll go to Lou, and then last but not least, Jeff. And in the meantime, if the team wants to drop their LinkedIn URLs in the chat for those here now, but also those listening to the recordings, it might be a good idea in case anybody wants to reach out to you, because you see, we've had over 280,000 people tune into these sessions, and none of that would have happened without people like yourselves. So I'm quite grateful on that. Now, Rosie, tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Anton. Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with us today. My name is Rosie Hewitt. I'm founder and CEO of Rosie's People, a global leadership, HR, and business operations consultancy. We support startup scale-ups and enterprise businesses with everything people and business operations efficiency. My background is within the HR, people ops, and business operations for almost 30 years now, getting old. And I've been in the fintech startup VC-led business for the last 15 years. Happy to be here to share some knowledge with you.
Lou, are you around?
I am. Sorry, I didn't hear you there. I think your Wi-Fi
that's
went
right.
on again. Hi, everyone. My name is Lou Matthews. I am the founder of Culture Craft, where we build culture as a product for your people. So working in sprints, using Scrum framework, agile principles to keep people and culture work and build very tightly scoped, reflecting budget constraints that we all know exist in our worlds, and we work as embedded partners with our clients, so really sitting alongside them, understanding their problems and pain points. My background is in lots of startups. Well, I started in a startup called Airbnb, who were definitely, I think we're well past being able to claim the title of a startup when I was there, but I was there with them through hypergrowth, and then back to kind of greenfields of 10 people, scaling up to Series C and D. So yeah, understand the startup scale-up world and the pain that could come with that in terms of people ops.
Hey there, folks. My name is Jeff Wellstead, and for the past 25 plus years, I have always ever been working in the intersection of sort of people, technology, and growing businesses. And for the last kind of decade plus, I've been running my own consultancy called Big Bear Partners, where I help founders and scale up design people's and create people strategies that drive kind of business performance. I typically have been kind of parachuted in at a variety of different critical moments, like around rapid hiring and international expansion and funding rounds, acquisitions, and even ugly stuff like restructuring and so forth. So my sweet spot nowadays is all about AI in HR, and what an incredible game changer that is for a function that typically has seen itself as being very administrative, compliance oriented, and a policy enforcer. Instead, I'm looking to transform organizations, not just HR, but other aspects of every business, with the power and the use of AI. So that's what I'm up to lately. So yeah, great to be here.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you very much to all three of you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. How about some do's and don'ts when it comes to your early stage hiring and finding and keeping and empowering the right people? Maybe if we can think of one do and one don't each, please. And don't worry about repeating yourselves, Jeff and Rosie, that you've been here before. And if we can use different logics for the do and a different for the don't, that would be great. So maybe on this, we can start with Rosie, then Jeff, and then Lou, please.
Thanks, Anton. I would say for me, the one do that I probably repeat often is just be honest. Be brutally honest. Just make sure that you've actually had a quick, thorough would be the word, thorough look at what you need. What do you have? What skills do you have? What skills are you missing? And when you're then going to hire people, try to hire people that actually fill in the gaps that you don't have, that can complement and support what's missing, and be transparent with people about what you can offer to them, what you expect of them, and what you're willing to do for them in exchange for their sacrifice in the early stage of your business. And of course, my don'ts would be, you are hiring adults, treat them as such, be respectful, and, don't overpromise things that you can't deliver, and just be real with people.
Nice one, Rosie. Jeff here. So I guess my do's or do would be to, if even in early days when you're quite small, just make sure you're systematizing. That's a word, systematizing things just enough. Don't over egg it. You don't need big, giant programs, expensive tools to help you do things. But even if you had like a Notion page for things like HR policies or shared objectives and key results documents, monthly cash flow forecasts, things of that nature, it just helps kind of like save the chaos and helps keep you guys connected early. Let's see, my big don't recently came across a company where the leader basically was all about, I want to make sure I listen to my people. I want to kind of gather feedback from my customers. I want to be like this open loop. And then, of course, upon receiving this information, failed to frankly register it and kind of take heed as to what the feedback actually was. So don't bury feedback. Remote and distributed teams, right, starve without feedback loops. So small frictions that are kind of left unspoken, I guess, become really big fractures, very quickly down the road. So that'd be my contribution.
Hello, sorry, I'm struggling to get to my microphone button. I am going to go, gosh, I've made a lot of lists here. Which do I pick? In terms of a do, I would say fail fast when it comes to people. If you know that somebody is not a fit, is causing problems, don't avoid it. Your A players will not hang around to work with Bs and Cs, and that's who you'll be left with if you don't take decisions and have difficult conversations quickly. And in terms of do's, I would say that was a bit of a do and a don't, wasn't it? But the other one is be transparent around finances. I think from the outset, educate people on what things mean. So when they hear terms like cash runway, they don't run away scared. But actually that level of transparency I've found really creates a lot of shared responsibility for the business success. So I think that's a really great win in terms of culture.
Well, that's some amazing do's and don'ts from all three of you, and that is great. I guess we can now go on to some questions. Perhaps just a quick reminder for those of you, I see quite a few that have joined on the live streams. This is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 166th session. We're doing this to help founders with whatever questions you may have in terms of getting that people journey right and getting it right from the start. The idea is quite simple. If you've got any questions, all you have to do is type them in the chat. We'll give you then the mic to ask the panelists on stage, and then you can fire away and ask your question. Now, just a quick reminder to those of you on the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are unable to monitor your questions there live, so you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams in order to ask the panelists. Quickest way to do that is simply go into our website, startup2scaleup.club. You click join. It's a quick registration that gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can then join us here. Once you're here, as I said, simply type your question in the chat and we'll give you the mic. In terms of today's questions, there are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. You can ask our team anything to do with talent, whether it's how and where to find the right people, maybe how to interview them, how much to pay them, how to build your culture, and all that jazz. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please then save them for the other conversations we run. On Mondays, obviously, as you can see today, it's talent. But then on Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. And on the second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And on the third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them by our site, startup2scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some groups of fellow founders, investors, operators, talent experts, various other experts, and of course our panelists and mentors. So at the top and bottom of our website, you should see a WhatsApp icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to join our WhatsApp community. Now, without further ado, since we've only got 40 minutes to go, we'll go on to our first question that was sent in to us. I've put that in the chat, by the way, panelists, if you want to go through it, but I'll read it out loud for the live stream. So, one of 3 co-founders of a seed stage health tech startup in Brighton, where we develop telemedicine solutions for underserved communities. As we experience rapid growth, how do we ensure that our HR process scale effectively, especially for onboarding new hires? Furthermore, how can we create a culture of transparency and communication across a quickly expanding team? So I guess 2 main questions around that. Number one, scaling HR and onboarding, or especially for onboarding. And number 2, culture of transparency. Let's start with Jeff. We'll then go on to Lou, and then Rosie, please.
Cool. Yeah, just my quick things about onboarding. Got to build so many onboarding processes. It's got to go pretty fast. But I think the thing you want to do to kind of make it really consistent is create sort of a welcome pack, right? That has everything that anybody needs to know about working in your company. You know, all of the cultural elements, the desired behaviors, the big wins, the big learnings from failures, whatever it is. But make sure that you have all that kind of built in, like mission, values, team apps, key tools, key people. Build a 30, 60, 90-day plan. You always ever want to do that. Basically help people understand how is it they're meant to make progression. So that by the time they reach the 90 days, they really feel like they're connected, like they belong, and that they own, outcomes. Always ever create, and I think this is often overlooked, but always ever create sort of a buddy and a mentor system for each new hire, and make sure that you kind of help instruct those mentors and buddies, if you will, in terms of how it is they should kind of like do what they can to really welcome the person, make them feel like they can reach out and talk to you about anything, and honor that confidentiality, where possible. But that really kind of helps spread the culture very quickly. It kind of gets people, kind of connected very fast. Let's see, transparency, communication, super important stuff. The things I've seen work are weekly all hands sessions. So a number of companies I work for used to have the founder or CEO stand up at 2 o'clock on a Friday and basically, grab a mic. Everybody puts their handsets down. Everybody listens, and it's just literally like a 15 to 20 minute, kind of catch up with everything that's happened in the week and kind of recognizing, great plays, great players, that kind of a thing. Talk about what critical priorities they have for the week following. Dashboards are super, super useful. So I've already mentioned Notion, but if you have another tool like Asana or Trello or even Google Sheets for that matter, you can basically help track objectives and key results if you can't afford a system to do so. And then feedback loops, just making sure that the people who are facing off, for instance, to the customers are feeding back specific information back to the product folks or the development folks or whoever, so that there is a fast turnaround. But I mean, those feedback loops should exist everywhere in the organization. So I think I've mentioned, but anyway, I'll let the lady speak further.
I think I was next. Do interrupt me if I wasn't. So scalable processes, I think Jeff's touched on this a bit already, but if you're looking at tech, or when you're looking at tech, prioritizing automation and workflow capability in that technology. So an example for onboarding processes, a lot of good tech, or any good tech, I would say these days, has the capability to trigger tasks, at the right task to the right person or role at the right time. A really good example of that in your onboarding processes would be issuance of hardware, right? Whoever's responsible for that in the company, but that's not done before a signed contract comes back, as an example. So there's huge capability that's kind of not always accessed, in my experience, in the tech that's out there. So don't be distracted by shiny things in tech that maybe you don't need and aren't going to be useful to you in terms of growing. And the other thing I would say in terms of the scalable element of that is keeping work where it belongs, especially if you're looking to make a people hire, or sit people work with a specific person, maybe in an operations role. Don't take the role of a line manager away from a line manager, because that is not very scalable. And quite often what will happen is your ops teams end up drowned in people managed performance management, and they're too far removed from the people that may need those things addressed. So instead of doing that, focus on building that line manager capability and keeping the work with them, the people who are closest to the people. In terms of transparency and comms, I would say something even as simple as creating a comms framework that just lays out how you communicate and how you use different platforms. So a bit of a matrix, I suppose. Is there an action required of people? Does this have potential to impact people? Who is the audience? If this, then you use this type of communication framework. I think when you're moving really fast and time is tight, and people are always quite grateful for those types of things. Skip level meetings are another great one. And Jeff mentioned as well, staying quite close to your people, and that's a great way to do it, by sort of taking that manager layer out of the equation and just asking people how they're getting on, what their experience has been, and how their manager is doing. You'll get a lot of honesty from people with that. And then finally, in terms of transparency and speed as well, I suppose, a bit of guidance around decision-making rights. So everybody knows, who do I need to go to get a decision made, and reduce blockers and friction points as much as possible. I'm done.
Thanks,
in
guys.
case that silence.
That would be me. Sorry, I was just trying to unmute.
Oh, no, all good.
I think obviously you guys have covered quite a lot of the great tips and stuff. I think for me, I would say that the tools that you use, especially these day and age, the tools are very important. So actually getting the right tool that helps you to start the pre-onboarding, plan the onboarding, and manage and also stay on top of the 30, 60, 90-day plan, which is ideally aligned to real product or actual goals for the organization. The buddy system is always a good thing. I think the most important thing is to try and create a lightweight, repeatable flow that doesn't require too many stages or overcomplications. Just keep it simple. Where you can automate. If you have the right tools to send the pre-welcome email, the actual starting day emails, you can have all those things created in advance. I don't believe you need a big team in order to have a great onboarding experience. You don't even need to have the most expensive HRIS to have a great onboarding experience. You just need to be intentional and have things documented so that the experience is consistent. What you don't want is for people to be having inconsistent experiences, where some might have great experiences and then some are having horrible experiences, because that ultimately is not good for your brand. Embedding transparent communication as a default is always a good thing to have, not just for onboarding, but culturally. So the all hands, the monthly meetings, the team stand-ups, all those things are helpful, depending on how large your team is and, you know, what type of environments you work in. You don't have to be physically all present in one place. You can do all of these virtually these days. And being transparent about how you make decisions. So it's not just about sharing what you're thinking of doing, but actually, you know, allowing people to understand how you actually make your decisions. And then in terms of your processes, create processes that can grow with you. So create those templates, create those offer letters, onboarding checklists, the scorecards, the touch points built into your system. So whether it's monthly or quarterly, mini reviews or whatever, make sure you have those feedback channels, whether they're pulse surveys, exit interviews, you know, regular touch point interviews, or even just anonymous type form boxes. These are all the things that you just need to continue to do and be intentional about if you're going to create and maintain a good onboarding and employer brand with people that will be joining your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sim. That was amazing. We've got 30 minutes to go, so we'll now move on to another question. Just a quick reminder to everybody, this is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 166th session, and we're here to help founders with whatever questions you may have in terms of getting that people journey right, whether you want to know how and where to find that first employee, or maybe even a co-founder for that matter. And perhaps you want to know how to interview people, and maybe how much to pay them, what kind of duties and skills you should match together, and maybe build in your culture and all that jazz. Quick reminder, if you are on the live streams, there's no point in trying to comment or send messages or emails or whatever you're trying to do, because unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So you'd have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. And the quickest way to do that is to go onto our website, startuptoscaleup.club, scroll down a little bit, find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 166. You click join, it's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can then join us here. If your questions today are not on talent, save them for the other conversations we run. Mondays, as you can see, it's obviously talent, but then Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can register to any future session via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you may also want to join our community on WhatsApp. We've got a few groups with various founders, investors, operators, and of course our panelists and mentors. And that is at the top and bottom of our site. You'll find a small WhatsApp icon. We'll now go on to the second question. I've put that in the chat for the panelists, but I'll read it out loud for the live stream. So, as the co-founder of a pre-seed renewable energy startup in Swansea, where we create solar-powered devices for coastal safety, I'm finding it difficult to attract engineering talent given our limited visibility. I'm being advised to bring on a fractional brand advisor to help establish our employer brands. What affordable branding strategies could they focus on to convey our commitment to innovation and environmental impact? Additionally, how can we ensure this part-time role effectively strengthens our brand in a way that resonates with both engineers and eco-conscious candidates? It's an interesting one. Let's go on to Lou, and then Rosie, and then Jeff. What would you do here?
Yeah, I really liked this one actually. I think I have lots of questions about this one actually, but I'll make some assumptions. But feel free to fire any other context in here. But I think my primary question was: is this brand advisor the right level for what you need. So what I'm hearing is this is all very internal in terms of your brand as an employer, and not the entirety of the company. So I'm just going to respond based on that. I think you need to think internally and externally, right? So your brand is what you're communicating to potential candidates, and then you've got your EVP, your employee value proposition. So what's in it for me? And that might incorporate things like what benefits you offer to people, ways of working, behaviors, values, and are those things reflecting your commitment to innovation and environmental impact? So just doing a bit of a current state analysis. I would also understand your aspirations and doing a bit of a gap analysis. So, what do we want that to look like, and where are we now? And actually, sometimes the most innovative things that you can do in these situations are sitting right under your nose. So I would ask your people. This is a really, really great exercise to do with anybody that's involved with the business or working with the business, to co-create what that brand or that future state wants to look like. I've mentioned it on here before, but backcasting. So, doing an exercise with your team. If you have a Google of backcasting, you'll see that's all about sitting in the future state and then mapping backwards the steps that you need to take to get there. And if you're feeling particularly brave, I think what would be a brilliant way to really show your commitment is to consider, have you got any candidates who rejected an offer? And could you invite them in to that backcasting exercise or a feedback exercise, and showing your people that, you're not afraid to lean into vulnerability and understand, why maybe somebody didn't want to come in, and how they might be, or why they might have been more attracted to the company had those areas been stronger. So I think that's probably something your people will feel are quite powerful. And then I would just finally say, on a very practical, when you're bringing in this advisor, see if you can get a bit of a fixed fee for I tend to phase work into 3 phases, but for diagnostics, I try and fix fee that as much as I can. Fractional, I find really useful when it comes to delivery support. So when you actually want to embed and roll out whatever the project is that you're working on.
Thanks, Zoe. So, I think fantastic advice you've got there. I think for me, it depends. I would say, at this stage, if from what I've read about the organization, the employer brand isn't at the stage where it's well known, and I'm not entirely sure it's going to be best built through ad spend. I would think that it would probably be built through authenticity, storytelling, and some strategic visibility. A fractional brand advisor can potentially be the right hire and be the amplifier, but only if they're pointed in the right direction. So I would say that before they probably start spending a lot of money and doing anything flashy, perhaps something that an advisor could help them to do would be to clarify and communicate the core brand identity. So, what's the why, what's the who, and what's the how. So what is the environmental problem that you are solving? Why does it matter now? Who thrives at your startup? What type of people would do great in your environment? Are they like passionate builders, or are they eco-first thinkers? Like, what sort of profile would be a great addition to your team? Who are you trying to attract, basically? And what is your unique approach to the how? Is it tech, community, partnerships, coastal impact? Like what is the how? I think that once you've sort of answered those questions, they then need to be, codified and then reflected everywhere. So from your job ads to your bios, and sort of making it your mantra that everybody sort of starts to link to yourself. I think that for a limited budget, an advisor can potentially focus on, and I think I may have mentioned this in the previous episode, founders as storytellers, where the founders themselves actually post the short video clips talking about the product, project, testing, impact stories, etc. And as you're trying to attract engineers, it might not be a bad idea to get your existing engineers to be part of this, to sort of allow other potential engineers to see what it's like to work in this organization as an engineer. They could talk about what they're building, highlighting complexity, the kind of thing that makes curious people, smart people excited. If they can sort of focus on that, then, you know, more impact storytelling and just purpose-led job ads that sort of talk about mission-driven engineers as opposed to just trying to reach anybody. I think you have to sort of make your brand part of, or rather, I want to say, a living part of your hiring. You know, they should be reviewing all your job listings, make sure that everything is consistent, and, you know, and they should be creating an employer brand toolkit for you that sort of attracts and hits the mark for all the things that you're currently not doing. These types of questions, when they come in, I wish the person was here so I could ask more questions, because I do have a lot of questions. It'll be interesting to know what you've tried, what didn't work, what is working. You know, have you assessed why certain things worked and why certain things didn't work? What made you think you might need a brand advisor? It's just to really understand the thinking behind that so that you can advice better, if you like. Ultimately, the brand isn't just what you say, it's also what the candidates feel when they, you know, read your job posts, scroll through your feed, and when they talk to your team. So if you do end up going down the fractional brand advisor route, then you just need to make sure that that person can tick all of those boxes for people and ensure that people make sure that they have like a mission that they feel is worth joining when they come across your brand. I've talked a lot more than I expected.
Oh, that was awesome, Rosie. Yeah, you stole all of my really good ideas, as did you, Lou. Well done. And absolutely nailed it. Look, at the end of the day, a lot of startups I worked for didn't have the money to major hiring budget rather, to go kind of outspend engineers or other type folks in much, you know, kind of more well-branded companies. It was, at the end of the day, in essence, sort of a psychological play. It was this notion of, look, how can I potentially get really qualified candidates to really kind of reconsider where they're sitting, what they're contributing, what impact they're having, and promise them something that is infinitely more powerful, that is going to do good for millions, that ultimately is going to change the world in a positive way. And to kind of, like, you know, I guess to a way to kind of reach out to people's inner champion for humanity kind of thing, and really kind of get people pumped up and thinking, geez, you know what, to be honest with you, I'm not particularly thrilled about what it is I'm doing here. I'm a cog in a wheel of a giant machine, and everybody else is making money and building reputation and everything else off of my back. And if you're going to do that, you really have to, you know, to Rosie's point, and I think Lou made this point as well, you really have to show people, not just tell people. Take videos of the work that you're doing, right? Get live testimonials from the people doing that work, but importantly also from the folks who are being impacted by that work, and show them why this company exists in terms of its true mission. And get people pumped up about that. I mean, when you think about it, right, religions around the world have been able to recruit people, volunteers, mind you, to rocket up and join mosques or churches or temples or whatever it is you want to call them, contribute money to them, and basically support them no matter what, under all sorts of different circumstances. That, in essence, is kind of what you need to be doing, is kind of creating, if you will, your own religion. But the religion has to have something of merit that says to everybody, this is bigger than all of us. This is important to fix. If we don't fix it, bad things will happen. If we do fix it, we'll live in an ideal world, kind of thing. You have to kind of like help build that out for people to understand. If you're going to go get a fractional brand person, you can do that. You'd want to see a portfolio. You know, where has this worked tremendously? Where has this turned around the whole hiring thing? And just be really clear about objectives, like metrics or whatever the case that you're going to track. And you want to go immediately to things like LinkedIn impressions or, you know, inbound applications, a percentage of applicants citing that mission was frankly the reason why they applied. You got to be really specific about that, because you don't want this to be kind of a floaty woolly, not quite sure if this is real kind of marketing campaign. This has to have teeth. This has to make a difference. So it's really important that you kind of get this bit right. But that's my two pence on it.
Well, I think I might be shooting myself in the foot a little bit here, because I have done and do work and am open when I've got time to such work in terms of helping startups with their employment branding. But again, if you were here, it would have been helpful because we could have asked a question, but making assumptions, I have a feeling you're too early to have somebody simply or purely as an employment brand advisor. I think what you actually need is to have somebody who does a bit of everything in terms of that early stage hiring. You know, startups read blogs and they see some shiny stuff on LinkedIn or some podcast and they think, wow, this is the latest new thing. And you end up spending money that you don't have. So personally, again, I don't know what stage you're at, and I know you may be a bit unpopular, but I think either find somebody who is, a fully equipped or a bit more equipped talent person than just employment branding. And of course, take into account the amazing advice that came from our panelists. But you're probably a bit too early in my book. And again, I'm only going on what you've written here because I can't find you on LinkedIn or your website for that matter. Right, we've got 14 minutes to go. I think we can go on to our third question. Let's try and keep it to about a minute each so we can go for another question after that, if we can, please, team. So I'll put that in the chat, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. Given that my startup just closed its Series A rounds, our budget prioritizes product development and market entry of our operational functions like HR. With limited funds to invest in HR infrastructure, how can we allocate resources most effectively to establish essential HR capabilities without compromising growth? Specifically, which HR areas after recruitment, such as employee engagement or compliance, provide the highest value to support scaling, and how should we phase these investments over the next 12 to 18 months to balance both short-term operational needs and long-term team stability? Actually, I think this is quite a cool question. Now, what is it that brings the highest ROI? I guess it's the bottom line here. After recruitment in terms of HR, what is the thing that you need the most and you should focus on? And it's quite hard. We kind of touched a little bit on the previous question, but it's quite hard to filter through all the noise that we're bombarded with. Let's see what Jeff, Lou, and then Rosie got to say on this. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Anton. Yeah, well, this is interesting. This is kind of, and you probably have the same experience, Anton. This is very much often what happens when people give me a call and say, hey, can you come and help us on a fractional basis, on a consulting basis, whatever the case, just to kind of get this stuff set up. You know we kind of need HR, possibly from a compliance perspective, not sure, but we don't have the funds to kind of like build this up. So what should we focus on? And I always ever say, having some interesting early memories, you want to focus on the stuff that's going to, kind of like keep you out of court and out of trouble. So things like, making sure your compliance and kind of contract regime and discipline is strong. And when I mean that, I'm not just saying paperwork. I'm talking about the way things are worded and the way that you're kind of communicating to people. Look, you matter to us, and we want to be good to you, and we want to be fair with you. But we obviously need you to contribute too. So making sure that your contracts communicate, the kind of employee value proposition you want to create, because I've seen some disasters in the opposite direction. So compliance and contracts would be your first thing. Performance and feedback loops. That sounds super simple. It is so not simple. It is a true power skill to learn as an organization. But if you get this right, it's super important to make sure that you are always ever improving. As individuals, from a product perspective, with your customers or clients and with your vendors and partners, you always ever want to kind of be making sure that your performance is at top notch. And then lastly, you want to focus on things like engagement and retention, having kind of grown with your Series A funding, probably done a bunch of hiring and so forth. That's great. And hopefully you have really good, solid filtering processes to get just the right people, again, aligned to your mission and, with lots of useful portfolio experience and things of that nature, who are really driven. You want to make sure that you keep those people, right? So I would say your first phase, kind of months 1 through 6, make sure you're protecting the business. Payroll, contracts, handbooks, policies, benefits, all of those critical things, right? Make sure you have those in play. Phase 2, like 6 to 12 months thereabouts, is around aligning and performing. And make sure you have things like objectives and key results that everybody can see and understand how they're contributing to it. Monthly, quarterly check-ins, pulse surveys, things of that nature. And then kind of phase 3 is this notion of how do we engage with each other and how do we grow as a business intelligently, right? So make sure that you have all those kind of critical, kind of what I call rituals, Slack kudos and shout outs and all hands and things of that nature. Make sure development around leadership and management especially is emphasized. Oh my God, that's so often the thing that breaks companies apart is really poor leadership and poor management. And then you start talking about things like career pathing and skills frameworks and things of that nature. Give people a solid understanding of who they are, where they are, when that can change, how can they make that change, how can they grow and continuously with your company. I'll leave it at that, but those would be my concepts, my ideas.
Thank you very much for that, Jeff. I think we said Lou and then Rosie.
Yeah, I mean, I would be absolutely with you, Jeff, on phase 1. I think compliance. I would add, and I'm sure anybody in my world would agree, make sure people know their responsibilities. And I don't just mean managers, I mean everybody, because I'm often the person that's sort of wheeled in after the fact when they've had their policies in place, they've had all the paperwork, but the event that has caused them a big problem has happened, right? And there's no one doing that. So employee relations issues are very distracting, very costly, and I would say build on not just having the policies and having the understanding and making sure people know what's expected legally. On a practical level, a lot of providers now, you can get handbooks, policies that are always up to date, right? They're kept online, so they can white label them as well, so they're all branded, and you don't need kind of constant reviews of policies when new laws come out, like the Employment Rights Bill in the UK. What I would say in terms of as you look to build out your HR infrastructure, don't hire to build your strategy. So what I mean by that is a HR generalist means very, very different things based on skills and experience. I would be aligned with Jeff in saying this is where fractional work is really good and where you can really tightly scope what that work is going to look like from a cost perspective, but make sure you're very clear on what your people strategy is going to be and building out a tactical delivery plan, right, with SMART goals, with owners, understanding dependencies to those, but you don't need to over engineer it either, right? You're on a 12 to 18 months trajectory, and I think if you can have a clear plan on what's going to be achieved in the next 12 months and what your priorities are in this area, that's enough. And then that plan will inform beyond that, what capability do we need to be able to drive engagement, to drive performance in a HR generalist. And I think that was it really. One, if you haven't heard of it, Traction and the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, is a very simple but very powerful way to set up a leadership team, and that keeps you focused on solving problems and not kind of that typical roundtable FYI of what our weeks looked like last week, but it actually removes blockers, keeps you focused on the right things. So EOS and the book Traction, which explains that, I think is a great starting point for any founder.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, I think just to add to what Jeff and Louis have said, I think for me, I would say that I agree, especially at this stage, you don't need a big team. I'm not even sure if you need a full-time HR generalist. You may need a fractional support. The main thing is just to make sure that you invest in the essential areas from the jump. So making sure that the compliance piece, as they've already spoken about, top notch, and you can get those done with certain tools now, so you don't need to worry too much about things being compliant. It just depends on whether you're a multi jurisdictional organization. Do you have people working from different parts of the world, in which case you may need to look at your compliance piece a little bit more closely, because I do know that some startups do end up hiring some remote team members, and that may actually change some of your obligations. So just be careful about that. And I think also for me personally, I would say that the important part of this early stage, a lot of startups have managers who have never managed before. I actually think that, a trick that is often missed is to train those managers early, giving them one-to-one coaching on how to give feedback, setting expectations, and having difficult conversations, because those things tend to lead to unnecessary ER situations. A lot of things can actually be avoided if the managers had received some sort of training. If you think of it as, HR hygiene, if you like, it's not sexy, but it's essential for preventing fires. And then I think that if your headcount has hit 20 plus or has exceeded that number, or you're going closer to the 30s and 40s, that's when you might need to start looking at investing in engagement and retention type strategies, and making sure that you actually have the infrastructure in place to have those quarterly check-ins and potentially full annual reviews, depending on how big you are, and having team engagement tools, especially if you're working in a geo-dispersed way. Technology is your friend, so just make sure you're using the right tools. And if you're not sure what those right tools are, there are many options, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with you, whomever you are, to give you some tips. And of course, look at the long-term stability. You need to start laying the groundwork for that. So equity clarity, career paths, L&D, so there are various things that you could be looking at. But I think that at this point, a fractional people lead can be what you need, and they can pretty much own and run processes. One that is good at what they do will probably be able to coach the managers and prep you for your B round diligence and things like that.
Thank you very much for that, team. We now have 3 minutes to go. Have we got time for one more question, or would you rather wrap it up?
I can stick around for one more.
I've got a
Louis,
hard
Rosie?
stop. I've got a hard stop,
Okay.
so I'll hang on, but maybe if you pop me last, just in
I've
case
also got a hard stop, so
Okay.
That's okay then. We'll wrap it up. Don't worry, ladies. Let's start with Louise, I guess, and then Rosie, and last but not least, Jeff. Some parting words before we let you go, then.
Yeah, I think trust your instinct is probably the theme that I'm hearing from the questions today. This consideration of, what resource needs to look like when it comes to people and culture and all of the different elements of the employee life cycle. In the employer branding one in particular is standing out. There's cohorts of people doing this work, of founders doing this work. And I've personally been in some of those scale-up accelerators, and it's quite often the people that you surround yourself with where you'll get some of the most inspiring and practical ways to move forward. So don't feel like you're alone. Join calls like this. Surround yourself with people who've been through the same problems, and who you can learn from. You don't need to spend lots and lots of money.
Yeah, thanks, Louise. I would just say that, as we've talked about, you do have access to resources. You do have access to Startup Scale Up Club. Take advantage of the resources that you do have access to. Make the most of asking questions. You're not supposed to have all the answers, so it's okay to ask the questions. Don't forget to have fun whilst you're building your business. It is stressful, but do try to have fun. And it's okay to have times when things don't go right. It's just dust yourself up and carry on again. You've got this.
Cool, and I'd just throw in at the end, first of all, it was wonderful having Ruby and Lou basically on here to kind of help guide things. Their contributions have been amazing. My simple key takeaways, I guess, would be to really just keep things simple, right? Keep things clear. Go with lightweight. Try to create repeatable processes for things like onboarding and feedback and alignment around, kind of key messages and goals and things. Always ever remember, culture is your competitive advantage. Like in that second question we had, which is how is it I attract like the best and brightest engineers to my company when I don't have enough money to pay them? This is how you do it. You do it through the culture, the impact that people are going to have, and always ever create a powerful and authentic mission-led, kind of level of intel around everything that you're doing. And lastly, again, as to the last question, always ever kind of like sequence your HR investments, right? You don't need to go for the big giant, employer of record HR system and things of that nature. You can use tools like Notion as an example, just to kind of get you up and off the ground. But you'll very quickly realize as you're growing and as you're expanding, the complexity gets hard to manage, and there are systems out there, hopefully that your budgets can pay for, that will make a lot more sense for you at that time. But that's with that said, I'll hand it back to you, Anton.
Well, thank you very much, team. You've been amazing today, as always, and I really appreciate your input. A couple of quick things before my parting words. Number one, I've put in the chat here, so those of you listening to the recording can look at the chat, and there's a link to our WhatsApp group for Startup Talent Q&A, where you can send questions ahead to future Q&As. You can discuss whatever we talked about here today. You can also get help post Q&A from your fellow founders, as well as the panelists/mentors that we had today. And I'd encourage the mentors as well. Well, it's only Jeff here now, but to join that group. On the other hand, just a reminder that those of you on the live streams, unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions there. So if you do want to ask us any questions next time, your best bet is to join us on Microsoft Teams here on our audio calls. The quickest way to do that is to go to our website, startup2scaleup.club. You scroll down and find whichever session you'd like to join. You click join, it's a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link, you can then join us. And being audio only, it means you can tune in via any platform or device from wherever you are. Now, we run 6 regular sessions. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP, as I said earlier, to any of them by our site, startup2scaleup.club. And as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember, the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun, and also be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, huge thanks again. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A. We've got some amazing engineers and product people joining us. Have a great afternoon, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.